But there can be no assurance of that. The reason is that there could be a disappointing recovery of assets. But there can be no assurance of that. The reason is that there could be a disappointing recovery of assets. What is the right repayment period for a liability whose size could be nothing, or in a catastrophic situation whose size could be very, very substantial indeed? That was the principal challenge of the negotiation. Could be nothing, or in a catastrophic situation whose size could be very, very substantial indeed. And I'll turn to the question of what we on the negotiating team have been calling safeguards. For each additional 10 billion ISK on top of the initial 45, another year is added to the repayment period. It could go as far as the year 2046, 37 years after the British and the Dutch actually advanced the money to buy the deposits from their citizens. It could go that far theoretically. No one expects it will. But the intention was that if a worst-case scenario came about, in the end, the interest rate that was settled on was for the Dutch 3% and for the British 3.3%. Now, because the British have roughly 2/3 of the claims, that blends to a rate of about 3.2. And what would happen is, remember I said a moment ago that the repayment period of any deficiency would automatically adjust to the size of the deficiency. So what you would do is look at the repayment period commencing in 2016, look at the chart of CIRR rates. You can look them up on the web if you want to know what they are currently. But there can be no assurance of that. To protect the Icelandic budget in any year in the future. The first of them I've described, an automatic attenuation, an automatic stretch out of the repayment period depending on the size of the deficiency. So that would mean that if it's larger than anyone anticipates, you'll have more years to pay it off, perhaps as many as 37 years to pay it off. Again, and there's a second one that will operate in tandem with that. The second one says that in any year in the future in which IceSAVE liabilities come to be repaid or still outstanding, no more than 5% of the central government's revenue based on the prior year need be devoted to repaying these liabilities. The intention here was this. The intention here was this. It was to protect the budget.
The intention here was this.
Suppose in the year 2020, if there are liabilities left from this, suppose the volcano explodes, or suppose there's some other natural disaster that causes government revenues to shrink precipitously. Now, if it exceeds the 5%, the money is not forgiven. It'll simply roll until such time as the government can comfortably repay it under the 5% cap, with a final stop date of whatever the repayment period is. But there can be no assurance of the money is not forgiven.
Not forgiven.